Now, the United States of America has increased tariffs not only for South Africa, but for almost all countries in the world. And what Mr. Trump is doing is saying he calls those reciprocal tariffs, that is retaliatory tariffs, like he's doing those tariffs in retaliation, that if you have been charging the American economy certain tariffs to gain access to your market, you are going to be charged for you to gain access to the American market. So South Africa is particularly affected because from the year 2000, South Africa was beneficiary of the African Growth and Opportunities Act, which was the legislation in the American Congress or Parliament to allow countries in sub-Saharan Africa to take goods and products into the American market without paying any tariffs, without paying any taxes as on when those goods enter the American market. So for a very long time, there's been some relationship with South Africa got to benefit from through AGOA, which now is coming to an end because there's a 30% taxes that are being imposed on South African goods and products. But we need to also, as a political movement, examine just who had been the beneficiaries of the AGOA process since enactment in 2000. Largely, it has been the automobile industry, Comrade Chairperson. So you'll find these European companies like VW, and then the Japanese with Toyota, and then the Americans with Ford will come and assemble cars here in South Africa so that they can get duty-free access to the American market. That is what, so 30% of the AGOA benefits has been accruing to the over-subsidized automobile industry in South Africa. And where they will just come and assemble cars so that they can gain free access to the American market. And then the second category of that was something called ferroalloys. And then agricultural products, citrus, and all of those things. So we said it before that in the process of hyper-nationalism and trying to appear relevant, Elon Musk is going to affect his people because the people who are benefiting from access to the American market is in the commercial agriculture, and the commercial agriculture in South Africa is 99% white and mostly Afrikaners. They are the first victims. We can't say, no, what about workers? Farm workers are treated like slaves. They're not benefiting anything. There's no farm worker who is benefiting anything from the farms that they're working in. They're treated like slaves. So the biggest victim of the hyper-nationalism and racism of Elon Musk and his friend Donald Trump will be the Afrikaner people whom he says are under siege. Now they're going to be in bigger trouble with this increase of the tariffs that is imposed on South Africa. But I think the most important observation that we have to make is that for a very long time now, America, through what is called the Washington Consensus, has been the number one preacher, archbishop of neoliberalism, which says that please don't put tariffs on goods and products that must come into your countries. Now, because there's a shift in the global balance of power, with China rising with proper manufacturing capacity and producing meaningful goods and products, the Americans are the ones who are turning around to opt for what they call protectionism, of protecting their market against imports from other parts of the world. So it means the Washington Consensus is coming to an end or is collapsing. American imperialism and neoliberalism is beginning to come to an end. There is, however, foolishness in the manner in which it's being handled, because it's just blanket increase of tariffs even on things which America cannot domestically produce. I mean, how do you increase tariffs on fruits and nuts which you cannot grow in your own country? What that will have is just inflationary consequences on the American population, where those will just become more expensive and you cannot alternatively produce them. But as an instrument of industrialization, that is what it's trying to do, with the hope that Americans are going to domestically produce their own goods and services. And by the way, and the last issue to then reflect on this, is that part of the things that America is importing from China, Vietnam, and all these other countries are done by American companies in those countries. Apple, for instance, manufactures these laptops of Apple and cell phones in China. They say it's made, even at the back of the iPhone, it's written, made in California, but produced in China, manufactured in China. So he must go and fight with those people of Apple. He must fight with his friend Elon Musk, because even Tesla cars, the batteries are made in China. These electric vehicles, batteries are made in China. So there is some levels of folly and foolishness in terms of how the tariffs are imposed in what happens. But what we should, all of us as the progressive global left and global south, appreciate is that the forced neoliberal agenda and forced trade liberalization, which was imposed on behalf of America by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, is going to come to an end. Countries are going to be able to develop their own industrial policies and set their own tariffs without being bullied by an American unipolar hegemony which existed for a long time. But in history, America has always tried to use tariffs for its own subjective purposes. But now we're in a different environment. There won't be any wisdom in trying to isolate South Africa from international trade. The call and the demand of Umkhonto we Sizwe is that let's intensify our relations with the BRICS countries. If anything, the relations with the West must not mean anything, because they've got neo-colonial and imperialist aspirations, which we must not be beholden to as a people. Our friends have got proper and large markets. The countries in the BRICS Plus bloc have got larger economy, larger population than the G7, than the rest of the world. In terms of the strength that we have, if you've got 1.4 billion people in India, 1.5 in China, South Africa should never waver in its own foreign policy positions and posture of anti-imperialism, of resisting the aggressive character of Israel in Palestine, all of those, of its historical, meaningful association with the Russian Federation, with all the progressive countries, the People's Republic of China. There can't be any threat. We are not too dependent on the United States of America. If we were to do an intrinsic study of just what constitutes our trade relations with America, we'll realize that it's actually the American companies and European countries that are benefiting out of that relationship. And the second category is the Afrikaner who are invited by Mr. Trump to go to America, and they can go. It's no problem with that. If they want to go, they can go. If they want to stay, they can stay, in terms of what happens. Comrades, I thought before I step down, must introduce our Treasurer General. His name is Hamilton Mpiake Limba. He's here, he's joined us, the TG of Umkhonto we Sizwe. Welcome, TG. If they ask questions about the resources and salaries, we are going to respond on our behalf. Thank you very much.
No. I think we're done. Thank you, SG, for that comprehensive response. I think if you had to go any further, I would have to charge them now. I think we're done, unless there's any other questions.